Well, hello, everybody. Welcome once again to the Van Buren Variety Show. I'm Bob Van Buren, your host. Very glad you're here. Hope you enjoyed the show so far. If you haven't seen my other episodes, they are archived. So just look under YouTube under Van Buren Variety. You'll catch up to all the episodes we're up to now. As I've told you before, it's a different guest, a different topic every night. So we have lots of fun. Talk about different hobbies, professions, entertainment. So a lot of stuff is coming forward. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for sure. Now, I did have a guest lined up tonight. That show has been postponed through no fault of the guest himself. I'm the one that asked him to come back another week or two for the show. He had completely understood. And if you're watching, I'm very glad about that. Hope everyone's had a great week. Mine has not been so good. The reason why I canceled my guest tonight, and I'm only going to be doing a monologue, I lost someone very close to me recently. My maternal grandmother, who was in her upper 90s, passed away peacefully, luckily. She was in her upper 90s and had a wonderful, wonderful life. For a time, though, she hasn't been doing too well. She was in a senior center, and she was also on hospice for the past months of her life. So that kept her comfortable. It kept her, just until the end came. But if you've ever had someone close to you pass away, you're never ready. Even though she was in her upper 90s, even if she'd made it to 110, 120, even 130, I still wouldn't have been ready. But I know she's in a better place now. There is no way that I would wish her back or selfishly pray for her to come back because, being on hospice and being in pain and or being so drugged up that you're just completely non-responsive, never wish that on her. I prefer to think of heaven as a beautiful place that once you're there, you don't want to come back to. And I can only imagine the sights that she's seeing right now because she did talk about her faith. She was baptized very, very young. And we talked about many spiritual and Christian things. So there's no doubt in my mind where she's at. So, Granny, I love you and really going to miss you. And I know my grandmother was never a very prideful person and a very unselfish person and one who didn't like the spotlight on her. But I'm going to go against her wishes, though, because tonight I'm going to talk about my grandmother. And I'm not wanting just to limit it to me. I would really, really like some comments on this video. If you have a special memory of your grandmother or grandfather, please make sure you make a comment and share that with me. My grandmother, I told you, was in her upper 90s. She lived a long, long, long life. And she shared so many stories about her life. And I actually made some lists here that I'm going to read tonight. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to tell them as well as my grandmother. She was the great storyteller, but luckily I do have some recordings, some video recordings of her telling these stories, these funny stories of her youth and memories. And I've even got some things around me that she's given me through the years and things that she actually handmade. So, like I said, it's left an empty hole in my heart, but she's in a better place now. My grandmother is in a much more beautiful place than she could have ever imagined here. So, may she rest in peace. So let me tell you a little bit about her and some of the funny stories that she told when she was young. She was the youngest sister of 3 children. She had an older brother and a middle sister, and then she was the youngest. But here's a story that she always liked to tell. In fact, I have a picture of her when she was just 9 years old. So this happened about the time this picture was taken. So, yep, that's her. That's my young grandmother at 9 years old. And a little backstory on that. I showed that picture to her less than a month before she passed, and she still recognized herself. She laughed and she goes, "Oh, that's me." But I may be a little biased here, but I think she was a very pretty girl. So that was her at 9. But here's a story she told. Now, this is back during the 1930s. So this is during the Depression when people didn't really have a lot. Her parents had given her and her older sister a doll, but it's one of those crying dolls where, you turn them over, it says mama or it cries. And people back then didn't have a lot, and people didn't have a lot of toys. So the girls treasured those two dolls. Well, her brother was always the inquisitive type, the older brother. Well, her only brother, but the eldest of the three. He wanted to know what made it cry. He was very curious what was inside that made it cry. He asked my grandmother's sister, the next to oldest, and she flat told him no, that he was going to keep his filthy hands off her doll. Well, my grandmother is a lot like me. She was soft-hearted, and according to her, she said, she felt sorry for him because he begged and begged, and he promised that he would sew the doll back up once he found out what made it cry. So my grandmother, being the soft-hearted, let him do it. So he cut open the doll, and he found a little, round crier, whatever they put in there. And he just wanted to see what made it cry and kind of tinkered with it. And my grandmother said he did. When he finished with it, he either sewed it back up, taped it, however he did it, and did it. Well, the story doesn't end there. He was so mad. He was still mad at the older sister for not letting him have her doll. According to my grandma, he got her doll, the other sister's doll, cut the crier out of it, all right, then cut the head off, and then buried it. Boy, I mean, you talk about anger there. Boy, just wow. Anyway, the sister finds out about it. And, of course, she's crying. She's upset. And according to my grandmother, her mother, which would be my great-grandmother, gave her brother the hardest whipping he ever had. And didn't make the sister feel any better because now she had a headless doll. So, but, of course, my grandmother, like being the soft-hearted, that's a story all about her because she was so giving and so lighthearted. And I remember that story forever. Some things I want to point out to you. My grandmother was very, very good at embroidery. She also made a lot of quilts too. And she made these, what I'm about to show you, a good 40, 50, maybe 60 years ago. And a few years ago, she started giving some of her things away. And she gave me some of the things that she had made. And so I'd love to show those to you now. She was very, very good at embroidery most of her life. And I'm going to show this to you real quick. I'm very proud of this. I have this on my dresser. Can y'all see that? I don't know how long that took her, but that took a lot of, it's a big, long scarf, I guess you could call. And I put it on my dresser. And this is one of many, many, many things that she made. So, well, that took a lot of detail work, but okay, that's one that I've got. And then the other one that she gave me looks like this. I mean, I don't know how she did that, but that took a lot of talent. And like I said, these things are really, really old now. So obviously they're going to be they are already family heirlooms. So, yeah, I treasure all of these. So I didn't get a good picture of that. So can you see that all right? Yeah, Granny made that. And I could show you things that she made all night long. So, but let me just get to the really ones I'm really, really proud of. I love this one. It's usually out for Christmas, but I keep it out all the time now. So, like I said, she was very, very good at embroidery. And this one was probably my favorite of the ones that she made, but I like them all. I think that's all. Maybe I'll show you one more. Little intricate work there. So, yeah, Granny was a very talented lady. She also made little potpourri boxes, and I thought it was a Kleenex box at first, but it's too small for Kleenex. She made these little boxes here out of thread. Can you see that? Little intricate. And she glued some flowers on top, and what you do is you put potpourri in there, and then put the lid back on, and it makes the room smell good. Unfortunately, when I showed this to her again a few weeks ago, she did not remember this. But in order to make her feel good, I told her that, well, Granny, I mean, it's been a long time ago. You wouldn't remember this because it's been too long. So I was trying to let her think that, it's not her fault she can't remember, because she was at the very end of her life not remembering things very well. But she did touch the flowers again, and I was able to tell her, hey, you made this, and you made so many good things in your life like this. So that was really good. One thing, another story my grandmother told is about the day she got married. And this is a wedding day that, I mean, today would be unheard of. I have a picture of her and my grandfather. Now, this was not taken on their wedding day. This was taken a few days, maybe even a week after they got married. And so that was them. They'd been married, oh, I don't know the exact day, but it was less than a month. So that's my maternal grandfather and my maternal grandmother. And here's the story she told about them when they got married. Uh, this is the 30s still, so I guess the Depression was still going on, or people still didn't have a lot of things. She talked about her wedding, that she, on her wedding day, didn't know when he was coming. He had already proposed, but they didn't have any telephones, and they didn't live really next to each other at all. So she said that she knew he was coming. He wrote a letter to her that he would be coming so they could get married. She didn't know. Well, the day of her wedding, she was out there picking cotton. She didn't know it was going to be her wedding day. She knew he was coming, but not when. So he shows up. He's ready to go. And luckily, there was a preacher on my grandmother's side of the family. And she got cleaned up, got dressed, and she had one of her uncles who was a preacher, married him right then and there. So she always kind of laughed. She goes, "Yep, that morning she was picking cotton on her wedding day." Who would ever figure? You don't hear those stories anymore. So yeah, she told that story lots and lots of times. And well, it's not a story you hear very, very often. So later on, my grandmother joined a quilting club because, as I showed you earlier, she made a lot of embroidery. But she also liked to quilt. I wish I'd brought one of my quilts in here to show you. But it's queen size quilt, has the state of Texas all over it. So I might go get that before the show's over. But back then, though, and we're talking the 1940s or 1950s, this was a quilting club. A lot of women got together in this community where she used to live, and they'd make quilts together. But my grandmother started not liking that. She called it the Fang and Claw Club because she said that, okay, let's just say there was a group of women around quilting, and say, I'll make up a name, Mary Lou was not there at the moment. Well, all these women would sit there and just put down Mary. I mean, just cut her to shreds, talk gossip about her, what she wore, what she said. And Granny would not get involved in that. She just like, you know what, I'm sick of this. But the minute Mary showed up at the door, "Oh, hi, how y'all doing? How you doing?" They'd be real friendly to her. But let's say throughout the process, maybe one other woman named, I'll say, Victoria, leaves. As soon as she walks out the door, these women now are putting and just backstabbing Victoria as much as they can. And Granny got tired of that. And she said, "I know good and well, when I left that room, they were talking about me too." So she put up with that for a little while. But if you knew my grandmother, you would know she's a peacemaker. She can't stand that kind of stuff. So she quilted on her own. She got tired of the Fang and Claw Club, as she called it. So a bunch of gossipy people, and it just didn't belong there. So that was one story she's always told. One thing that she always talked about was my grandfather. Her and my grandfather were married for a wonderful, wonderful 46 years, only ending because of his death. But one time she told me a story. I told the family a story of this. Her and my grandfather were in bed, but my grandmother had a horrible, horrible, horrible toothache. I mean, it was just paining her. She's told this story many times. Well, they didn't have the medicines back then that we have today, but they would make what they call a toddy. And maybe some of you don't know what that is. I believe that you put whiskey in it, some alcohol, maybe a little lemon, a little honey, but it kills the pain. So that's what people would do back then, just to kind of lull the pain till you could see a doctor or a dentist. So she'd been moaning and groaning in bed for a long, long time. She can't sleep. Obviously, my grandfather can't sleep because of her moaning and groaning. So finally, he gets up and he says, "You know what, honey, I'm going to make you a toddy." And my grandmother told him, "So now don't make it too strong. I don't want you making, I don't want too much whiskey, too much alcohol in that." So he goes and he stirs it up. He gives it to her in bed. She drinks it, and she says right off the bat, she can tell that he made it too strong, but she drank it anyway. But it wasn't very long. She was out like a light. I mean, she slept the whole night. But now my my grandma's always accused my papa of doing that on purpose. In other words, he built it strong not just so she could sleep, but so he could get some sleep, because he couldn't sleep with her moaning and groaning. And every time she told that story about that, my grandfather would be on the chair just kind of grinning. He wouldn't say a word, but Granny knew, goes, he made that on purpose just so he could get some sleep, not for her benefit, but for his. That's a story that's been passed down through the years too. And my grandfather and grandmother, like I said, had a wonderful marriage, ending only because he passed away. Grandmother never remarried. She didn't date. I mean, that was the love of her life. In fact, I showed you a picture shortly after they got married. This was them later in life, and they went to a photography studio for that. And that, I really like that picture of them. That's how I remember them when I was a little kid myself. So, in fact, this was a picture that we had shown, that we displayed on an easel at her funeral. This was, a very, very attractive picture, and that's how I remember them in their youth like that. So. That picture is actually hanging up in her living room in her house. So they were the best grandparents I could have ever had. So they had a very, very happy marriage. Another funny story about them is it has kind of a bad story, but then there's something funny in the end. My grandmother fell one time going to a garage sale. She was outside on the street, and she fell on some loose gravel. Luckily, there was a business next door that saw that, and they rushed her to the hospital themselves before my grandfather could get there. And she broke her arm and her leg, both. So she's in the hospital for a while. She comes home from the hospital, and my papa told this story, but Granny's also said it, that they were laying in bed one night. And I guess it was this arm here, her right arm, because my grandfather slept on this side of her. And not on purpose, my grandmother was turning over in bed and had the cast and knocked my papa right in the face. And papa always said, I bet you did that on purpose. And of course, Granny's like, I did not. That was an accident. And everyone always told him, you better behave, she'll do it again. But can you imagine being asleep one night and a big old cast arm hit you right in the face? But he was very caring, and he looked after her during that time. So that was a rough time, but I thought that was kind of a funny story. Wow, see, what I'm looking at, ladies and gentlemen, I have this list of things that I was going to talk about, and how do you squeeze upper 90s years of living into an hour? And there's just so many things to say. One thing, I'll tell you this, my grandmother was not afraid to do. She was not a very outspoken person. She wouldn't just tell somebody off at a moment's notice, but she did speak her mind when she felt she had to. Case in point, years and years and years ago, she had a yard sale at her house. And a lot of us, the family, we brought stuff over to sell too. And that happened, fairly often. At this time, there was a family friend that had come by to the garage sale and was just kind of shopping around. Well, he didn't realize who he was talking to, I guess. He was telling some of his wild stories, specifically his drinking, party till you puke type stories. And I don't remember exactly what it was that happened on one of these binges, but something awful happened. He either got in trouble, he fell down, or just something got in trouble. And he had to put a tagline on it. He said, well, that's what happened when I was drinking. And my grandmother, without missing a beat, said, well, you shouldn't have been a drinking then. You could hear a pin drop. I mean, he zipped it. He's like, uh-oh, I'm talking to little grandma over there. So he kind of changed the subject a little bit. I'm like, yeah, you better. So I said, Granny was not the type to just pop off at somebody and tell some off, but when she felt like she had to, she did. Another rule. Now, this was a rule. This was a lifelong rule of hers in her house. She'd feed you. She'd feed strangers, family, friends. It doesn't matter. If you left my grandmother's house and you were still hungry, that was your fault. Because, she would make sure that you were properly fed. Even if you really didn't want to eat, she'd see that you did. But there was one rule in her house as far as that concerned. You could not bring food into the living room. Eating in the living room was a no-no. And I can see why. It was carpeted. She didn't want things spilled. We were kids at the time, me and my cousins. And so, but that was a rule even for the adults. If you wanted to eat, you ate at the table. And if you want to come and watch TV in the living room, you put your food down, then come in the living room. Well, I found that out the hard way. Me and a cousin both. I'll tell you the story of me first. But it was one Saturday morning. I was still in grade school. Well, I brought in a big bowl of cereal. And I turned the TV on, probably Saturday morning cartoons. Well, I got busted. And Granny said, "Now, Bob, I told you over and over, no food in the living room. You go back in that kitchen and finish your cereal." Because I'm kicking the bowl, and I'm just grumbling. Anyway, so I can hear the TV on, but all of a sudden I miss Granny. Like, where'd she go? I don't see her in the kitchen. I don't see where she's going. What's she doing? So I put the cereal bowl down on the table. I peep around the door, and there is my grandmother propped up on the couch, barefoot, eating a banana. And don't think I didn't call that out. "Ah, look, you said no food in the living room, and look what you're doing right now." She looked at me, turned her head just as calmly as can be, and said, "It's my house." Got me. So, yeah. I had nothing more to say about that. So, yeah. But my cousin didn't learn that lesson so well. This one, she got him good on this one, I have to say. And that story has always been passed down to the ages. We were teenagers at the time when this happened, but I don't know what day or if it was evening or morning, whatever. But he came in with food and was wanting to watch television while he ate. And Granny just said, "Hey, wait a minute. You get back in that kitchen. I don't allow food in the living room." Of course, he's grumbling, But I guess he ate what he wanted in the kitchen. He comes back from the living room and makes this grand announcement to everybody. Quote, "When I get my own house, that's going to be my rule, that you can eat in the living room." And again, Granny turns her head ever so slightly, and she said, "And when you have your own house, you can have that rule. This is my house." I'm thinking, cousin, buddy, you better quit while you're ahead, because she got you. We've talked about that story all through the years, especially when I would bring up the part about her eating the banana after she told me to she sent me back, and she always said, "You are never going to let me live that down, are you?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm not going to let you live it down." So let me show you some of the things that she made. She made this for me too. This is a bookmark. You put it in one of your books, and she actually handmade that. Put a little ribbon on it. I keep it in my Bible for the most part. So this is, money I can never put a price on this. This is mine forever that I will pass down to the family. So, and she made several bookmarkers, not just for me. And she even sold some in the yard sale. So this is a treasure. It'll always be a treasure to me. Earlier, I talked about when she got married. That was the upper 30s, and still people didn't have a lot. They didn't have a lot to give like we have today, most people. So I want to show you something here. Now, this is not the actual gift that she got on her wedding day, but this is a replica of what it is. She's got the same thing in her house. But this was given to her as a wedding gift by one of her aunts. I guess you can call that a little... If you put cream for your coffee or put milk in it or something. Notice the design on that. Again, this is not hers. This is one I bought at an antique store about a year or two ago. And I bought it because it reminds me of the one that my grandmother has. I'm trying to get my face out of the way. But the story goes, one of her aunts gave that to her. And back in the day, you got things out of oatmeal. And this came out of a box of oatmeal and was from her aunt and was given to her as a wedding gift. So, yeah, you think, oh, that's some wedding gift, but you got to remember this is after the Depression, so people didn't have a lot of stuff back then. So this is only a replica, but the original is at my grandmother's house still, and that'll be a very treasured item for all. She even in her house, she put a little note in there talking about when she got this for her wedding and who gave it to her, and that it came out of a box of oatmeal. So I found this at an antique store, and like, okay, this is not the original, but I've got to have it because I know the story behind what she had. So, and I did bring it to the nursing home before she passed, and she put her fingers on it, and she remembered it, and so that was a blessing. My grandmother had a memory like an elephant. Just when you thought she'd forget something, and she would pass it up, maybe you'd say something and you see if you could bypass it. No, you couldn't get anything past her because she remembered anything that you said. It was just like you could just put it in stone and it was going to be there, and you couldn't fly it past her. So here's the story on that. Let me bring you another picture though. Now this was not a picture she probably was proud of, but she happened to be talking on the phone, and yeah, yours truly snapped a picture. I'm sure she wasn't that happy, but with that, so I'm sure she told whoever she was talking to stop, for her grandson to stop taking sneak pictures. But and the reason I show it, not because it's just a funny sneak up picture, but that was her chair. If you watch All in the Family, you've heard of Archie Bunker's chair. Well, she wasn't as meticulous on that chair as Archie was, but that was her recliner. You could almost always catch her sitting there in that corner of the living room. So it's really hard to go to her house now and see that empty chair. But she's in a better place. I keep telling myself she's in a much better place, much more comfortable than that chair could ever be. So I'm talking about her memory now. This has probably been 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. It's been a while. She had an operation, but she had to go to rehab for a while for rehabilitation. And this was one of her bad days. She was not having a good day at all. I guess she was just kind of giving up hope, and I'll never get out of here. I'll never get well. Well, a little backstory on that. Back 20 years prior, she had bought a ceramic turkey, and she painted it. And she did a very, very good job of it. Well, I worked at a job where every holiday was celebrated. So Thanksgiving came up to this one time, and I asked her if I could borrow that turkey just to kind of put some candy in it and decorate it for Thanksgiving. Okay. Well, following year, same thing. I asked if I could borrow it again. She let me have it. This went on for a while. Finally, she said, Bob, why don't you just take that turkey? You're always buying it. You're always borrowing it. I said, no, Granny, you painted this. You made it. I'm not going to just take it from you. No, you take it. You like it, so take it. She was hard to tell my grandmother no. So here's the turkey in question, and I'll tell you the story behind it. It's kind of chipped now, but she painted that. If you look, I guess it could be a planter, but I've always kind of put candy in it. I thought it was perfect for Thanksgiving. So she did a really good job. Put a little felt on the bottom, and I finally was given this to me, and I'll tell you how that happened. So this is my grandma's Thanksgiving turkey. I kept borrowing it. So now we're fast forwarding to when she's in the hospital, the rehab. It was right around Thanksgiving. So I asked her, I said, Granny, can I borrow that again? I'd love to just borrow that. And she told me again, Bob, I've told you, you can take that. I said, no. And finally, but there was one of those really bad days. She was having a lot of, bad problems. So I said, all right, Granny, I'll make you a deal. I will take that turkey in one condition. You have to get out of rehab, and not just get out of rehab, but go home and be well and be completely well. And she goes, no, you take it now. I said, nope, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. You have to get out of rehab, and not just get out, but be absolutely 100% cured. Okay. I thought, okay, well, I delayed that. So Thanksgiving went by, took it to work. After Thanksgiving, took it back, gave it back to her house. A few days after Thanksgiving, she comes home and she's well. Well, guess what happens when I come over to her house to visit? And she goes, Bobby, now I'm home now. You take that turkey. And I was like, no, Granny, I said again, I don't want to take it. And that's when she reminded me, now you said if I got out of rehab and I got well and was able to come home, you'd take that turkey. Yeah, I did say that, didn't I? So I took it, but I hugged her, kissed her, and I don't take it to work anymore. I don't want to break it with the transit back and forth. I do have to kind of touch up the paint. But this will always be a forever heirloom. I decorate it for Thanksgiving now, but for home and for family. But this is another memento for my grandmother. And so I love it very much because she painted it. And it was on her table for a long, long time when I was growing up. So I want to share that with you too. Granny gave me a lot of things. I mean, lots and lots of things. She even gave me some drinking glasses. I normally I have my own drinking glass, but I brought this tonight because she gave me a set of these cups. No particular reason. So, Granny had a very giving heart. And this is just, there's no way I could show you everything in my house that she gave me, made for me, so it's a special gift. I have a lot of things that remind me of her now. She gave me something about 5 or 6 years ago now that, again, I treasure all my items, but this one is really something that I just can't get over that she gave me. She knows I like the older stuff and I like history. I love family history, any kind of history. I love just sharing family history with people and hearing about their stories too, about their grandparents or family or just their history, their lives. I've always been interested in that. I'm still humbled and honored that she gave this particular thing to me. I want y'all to see this. Take a look at this. Can y'all see that? That is the old family movie camera from the 1950s. And guess what? It still works. I checked it out, and there's even a company that still makes 8mm film, and you can even have it developed. I haven't done it yet. I want to get the camera cleaned very well. It's been, obviously been quite a while since it's been used, but Granny gave me this, and it has the case with it. It has some of the original papers with it, and there's no way I'll part with this. This is a family heirloom. Again, this is the old family 8mm camera. And my granny gave that to me, about 5, 6 years ago. And she'd had it in her possession. And I am so honored. I just can't get over that she entrusted me with it because she knows that I would love it so much. And I've got to read the papers. I mean, there's some things that I need to learn on this. So, but I would love to film another 8mm movie here in the 21st century. And so, I don't know what these are worth. There's no way that I'm selling this though. This stays with me forever because a lot of Christmases, birthdays, anniversaries, and special events got captured on this camera. And for her to give it to me and entrust it to me, that's humbling. And I display it in my living room as a conversation piece. So this is the original camera. I mentioned birthdays and holidays, anniversaries, Christmases. Those were big things in my family, especially back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s. And I have a few pictures of Granny celebrating some of these events. This was her in the late 1960s. This was Mother's Day. And you can see she got a cake and she got all presents. Now, I am too young to remember that. So, I'm probably over there sleeping somewhere. So, but anyway, that was a Mother's Day holiday for her. So, and not sure what the presents are, but that was very, very, very well deserved. And then we go to a Christmas later that year, and that was the same year. And so that's probably me that you see in the leftmost corner of the screen. You can see I'm completely preoccupied, not watching anything. We got to remember, attention span of a toddler is not too much. So she got a ring that year, and she's wearing a little candy necklace that my mother had made for her. So again, Christmases, birthdays, Mother's Day, just anniversaries were always big things in my family. So that was even the case when we got older. In fact, I'll show you that picture right now. This was a birthday. Well, I don't think it was her birthday. You can see the cake is chocolate, and she didn't mind chocolate cake, but usually we got either a white or yellow cake for her. But this is somebody's birthday. Okay, the years have gone by, but you can still see we're celebrating birthdays and togetherness. So, and that was what was so infectious right there. If you look at that, that is my grandmother's smile. I mean, that smile was so infectious. You couldn't help but be in a good mood to be around her. And we'll always appreciate that. So, other things that I've bought over the years, even if you can't have the original items that your family gave to you or your family entrusted you to, you can see something sometimes at an antique store or like a First Monday or a bargain time or an auction that just like, what, that brings back old memories. Well, that picture I showed you earlier of the Christmas when she was holding up the ring, that was my grandmother's and grandfather's house. In fact, I lived with my grandparents, my mother and I, for a little over 10 years. And one of the things I remember about that old house before we moved much, much later on, they had a black rotary phone in the front bedroom. It was kind of next to the living room. And of course, a landline. Young people, that was long before cell phones. Everybody had a phone in their house. If you didn't have a phone in your house, you just didn't have a phone. But it was a black rotary phone. And I always remembered it. And lo and behold, what do I find at a garage sale years and years ago? No, this is not the original, but this is exactly like the phone that was in my grandmother's house. Have y'all ever had a phone like this? Have y'all ever talked on a phone like this? And some people may not even know how to make a call on this anymore, but instead of pushing numbers, you had to dial the number like this. And you talk on it this way, and then you hang it up here. But that looks just like the phone that I had at my grandmother's house. And it brings back a lot of memories. I can still remember the last 4 digits. I can remember the entire phone number. I don't want to give out the phone number here because someone else probably has that number. But the last 4 digits of our number way back then was 2813. That number is just forever in my head. And so, but that brings back a lot of memories there. So that was definitely a phone that type of phone I talked on when I was a little bitty kid. One of my grandmother's favorite flowers was roses. She had, and there are still roses growing out on the rose bush outside her house. She was very meticulous about her roses, all plants anyway, even cactuses. But she loved roses. And on top of that, she always liked the color red. Red seemed to be one of her favorite colors. May not be her all-time favorite, but she loved the color red, a really, really bright red. And roses, of course, obviously most of them are red. And those roses are still growing now. In fact, here's a picture of Mother's Day where we gave her some, there you go, red roses. Those weren't picked from her front yard. Well, I'm sure we would have heard about it if we did that. But yeah, red roses were her all-time favorite. And it's a very good picture of her, if I do say so myself. I haven't seen my bad picture of my grandmother, so. But yeah, red roses were definitely her favorite. And so, but she had pink roses. She even had yellow roses. She used to have even morning glories growing up on the side of her porch. And so, but I remember the red roses the best. So we'll keep those roses growing in her memory. So that's another good memory. Towards the end of her life, my grandmother was in a senior center, and so she wasn't able to get out and buy the gifts that that we were able to do on Christmas. But I do have something here, and it's the very last thing that my grandmother would give me, and it happened almost completely by accident. And even though it's something that I can use, but when it cannot be used anymore, I'm still keeping it. What happened is right around Christmas time, some people, some group came up and bought a lot of things for the seniors living in that home. Could be like, hand lotion, toothpaste, toothbrushes, things just that a senior elderly person can use. Oh, there's even like some puzzles, some games in there, like seek and find. Well, my grandmother went through some of that stuff, but when I went to go see her, this was Christmas of last year, she was showing me some things. She said, "Bob, I will never use some of these things." And I said, "Well, Granny, I hate taking it. They gave it to you." She goes, "No, here can." And she asked me an honest question. She goes, "Do you need a new toothbrush?" And I said, "Actually, I do. I do have a toothbrush I could use. I really need that." She goes, "Well, you take this one." Because she had false teeth, and she had her own ways of cleaning her false teeth. Actually, the nurses did. And so before I knew it, she gave me this. Yes, it's just an ordinary toothbrush, but now that she's passed, this will be the last gift she'll ever give me. So I'm going to use it. I'm not going to just sit up and rot. I am going to keep it. And so I'm using it. But when it just can't be used anymore, maybe the bristles come off. This is going to get kept because, again, it's just a toothbrush for some people, but for me, it's the last thing my grandmother could and will give me in my life. So it's being put to good use too. So this is something that I will always treasure because of who gave it to me. Wow. I've talked so much about my grandmother. I'd love to hear from you guys. I'm not through talking just yet, but if y'all would want to leave a comment, talk about a memory of a grandmother or a grandfather, that's great. Otherwise, I got some more things to talk about. Granny, I wish I brought that quilt in here. I may have to just pause, run in there real quick and go get the quilt because I think y'all really, really like it. I should have hung it behind me, but I got a few more things to share, memories to share. Here's another picture of my grandparents. I'd like to share it with you. Now, see, there's the explanation on this picture. Okay, you see me behind my grandmother, then my grandmother, and my papa sitting in a chair. Okay, you will notice most of the time if you would go through our family album, my papa rarely looks at the camera. Is he camera shy? No, because more than likely there's football on television, and if there's football, you're not going to get his attention. So right there, I will guarantee you, I'll put any amount of money on that. He's watching football. There's a football game on, and not a camera or anything else would make him turn away from that. You see my grandmother right behind him, always together. And you see me photobombing, which photobombing probably wasn't even a term then. I'm probably the one that invented that. That's me behind my grandmother, trying to sneak in the picture. So you can tell that was right around Christmas. You can see that wreath hanging above the doorway above us and that little tinsel. Granny put that up. She was very good at putting up Christmas decorations and decorating the house. So I have some very, very fond memories while I was still living there, my mother and me. So that's a real special memory. Another thing my grandmother was good at was growing things. When my grandfather retired, they moved to another house, a bigger house, and they had enough room to have a garden. And oh boy, folks, if you've never had anything homegrown, you don't know what you're missing. They grew everything in that garden. I mean, corn, potatoes, beans, just I can't name everything that was out there. They had peach trees. They had a pear tree. I think even an apple tree. And they were very meticulous. I remember my grandparents lots of times out there picking and watering and, of course, spraying for all the varmints that kept going out there. And my grandmother was an excellent cook. Not only having something homegrown, but had to have it home cooked. It was just, it was awesome. My grandmother was famous for her chocolate pies. I don't know what she did to it or what was her recipe, but I have never tasted a better chocolate pie than what she made. And I'm not just saying this myself. I'll give you some history. We would have a yearly family reunion, and the extended family would ask her in advance, "Are you bringing your chocolate pie?" And she said, "Well, yeah." But then one time she said, "Well, I want to bring something else other than a chocolate pie." And a few times she did. I mean, the family that almost was downtrodden. They said, "How could you not bring your chocolate pie?" In fact, they were so good that you know how most people go for the meat, the potatoes, and the beans first. Not if my grandmother's pie was there. They wouldn't have got the pie first, and that pie would be gone if you weren't up there first or second or third or fourth before you got your meat and potatoes. Because I mean, it was they were very delicious, and I don't know what she did, but she was an excellent cook. But going back to the Peachtree, she probably wouldn't want me to share this story. It's not that funny, but it is funny now. But just her reaction. I was helping her pick up some peaches off the tree, and there were some even on the ground. And she had several trees, but she called me over to the other tree she was picking. I remember saying, "Bob, come here. Look at this." What? Why? She picked up a peach off the ground. Okay. And she said, "Look at this peach." And I looked at it. In the middle of a peach, there was a big cone-shaped hole in the shape of a cone. Basically, what had happened, a bird, maybe a blue jay or whatever, the long beak, pecked that peach, and she goes, "A bird done ruined that peach." And so I was kind of thinking, well, birds got to eat too, you know. I remember how disgusted she was. You could see this big old hole where the bird had actually poked a hole in it. So I do remember that. Wow. Now, you know, there was one thing that my grandmother was not afraid of. She could laugh at herself when she would do something or say something a little bit wrong. I mean, she didn't act insulted. I mean, we could talk about it, and she could just laugh at herself easily. She didn't take offense at all. This is a funny story, and it happened in later years when Grandma was kind of starting to lose her hearing a little bit, and she would hear things, but she would hear it wrong. So one time, the story goes, my uncle came to her house, and she asked him where he had been. What was he doing? And he said, "I went," his words now, okay? Here's what he said. "I went to Walmart and bought a couple of discs for $5. Okay? My grandmother gives him the big bug eye, stares at him, and said, You went to Walmart and saw a couple of people wrestling on the sidewalk." We're like, "What? Where did that come from?" We're like, "No. He bought a couple of discs at Walmart for $5, but somehow that got translated into he went to Walmart and saw a couple of people wrestling on the sidewalk." We talked about that, and she would laugh. She would go along with it. And one of her favorite sayings would be like, she'd go, "I'm liable to say anything." Another thing she would say is if she was something kind of got frustrated or maybe something wasn't going right, one of her favorite sayings, "Oh, good night, nurse." Just like, oh brother, you know. So that was a good story. Tell you what, I'm almost out of time, but if y'all can just pause real quick, I'm not canceling the show. I'll let you see the globe. The quilt is in the next room. I really would like y'all to see that. So if y'all can just pause for like 10 seconds, I'll be right back. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Move the chair out of the way. My grandmother made this queen size queen size quilt. Now, she didn't actually make it for me, but she did give it to me like 6 years ago because she knew I liked family heirlooms. I didn't even ask for it, but this is what she gave me. She made this. Can y'all see that? Let me go it in front so you can see it better. It's got the state of Texas all on it. It's a queen size quilt. And I love it. It really keeps me warm at night. So she had a bunch of quilts she was giving the family. And this is, actually, she gave us a choice. She wanted to know, she put them all on her bed. She wanted to know what we wanted, which one we wanted. I picked the one with the Texas all over it. So she made that especially. And definitely a family heirloom now. And I love it. As you know, as I told you, it's been a really rough week for me. My grandmother, whom I affectionately call Granny, passed away recently, but it was not unexpected, folks. She had been on hospice, and I don't know if you've ever had a family member or a friend on hospice, but hospice, I'll tell you this, is not a cure. Hospice just keeps the person comfortable until they're ready to go. And so the story is my uncle and my mother saw her in the home before she passed. And then 2 hours later, I get a phone call around 10 o'clock at night. And I thought, usually I don't get phone calls that late. And I thought, well, maybe it's, family member telling me something. This very cell phone here, I picked it up. Actually, I looked to see who it was, and it was the senior home. Why would they be calling me at 10 o'clock at night? But on a comforting level, folks, I couldn't be more pleased. They said she died peacefully because she'd been on hospice. They had given her some medication. She'd been non-responsive for a few days. So I couldn't ask for better. If someone's going to pass, I mean, selfishly, that's the way I would like to go. We don't choose that, I know, but for her to not feel any pain is probably the best that could have happened. As I said in the early broadcast, she reaffirmed her faith in God and Jesus. She was baptized at a young age. So I have no doubt where she's at. And I'd like to think that there was a happy reunion with my grandfather, who's been dead for 30 years too. She saw her parents, all her old friends. And for me to wish her back, to be back where she was, that is the most, I will never pray that selfish prayer. I'm happy where she's at. I'm hoping that she's seeing such beautiful sights that I can't even describe right now. There are so many other stories I could tell, but this would be a 3-hour broadcast, and there's just no time. I want to show you this picture. This is one of the last pictures I had of my grandmother. There's two of them here I want to show you. This was taken last year when she still kind of had her mind. She was still feeling pretty good. This was last year. I had a nurse take that picture of me and her together, and I completely treasure that picture. And it was, sorry, get a little emotional. It was a good day for us. And that's a picture I treasure now. And that's, I loved her very much. And but what keeps me going is knowing that she's in a better place. And I mean, it's a good picture of us. I really, really enjoy that picture. And she never thought she took a good picture. Every time we'd show a picture of her, she'd always say, "That's an awful picture." And I would say, "It is not." And so, but she never felt that way. Now, this is what I'm about to show you now is the very last picture I have, or one of the last between my grandmother and me. And you'll know exactly when it was taken. Here it is. This was in her room. She was not on hospice. She was a few months away from that. You can tell by the hats, if you can't see it, we're wearing New Year's hats. Both of them say Happy 2021. And it was. I spent New Year's Day with her that day. Had a wonderful, wonderful time visiting her. This was still during the COVID lockdown, so not all my family could be there, but we did do a FaceTime with her on my phone. so that they could at least see her on the camera and she could see them. So yeah, the hats say happy 2021. And it really is, folks, because 2021 is when she gained her wings. That's how I look at it. So it was a happy year, and she's young again. She's healthy again, not feeling any pain. And I treasure this picture because, it shows here we met to a new year. And, we'll treasure. I still have that hat. And by the way, that hat that she's wearing, the nursing home brought back. It's still in her room. So I'm going to keep both those hats now as a treasured memory. So we'll always appreciate that picture. The day before my grandmother's funeral, I was thinking about some things to say. I wanted to share some memories with the family, and I did. Remember the turkey story that I told you earlier about the ceramic turkey? This one here, if you didn't see it already. I shared that story of this turkey at her funeral and the story behind it. She painted this, if you didn't see the very beginning of this. But I thought, I want to share something really special, how I really felt about her to everybody. And I was looking for the words. I'm already full of grief at the time, and I just couldn't think, what can I really, really say to really express how I feel? And folks, I can't explain this, what I'm about to tell you right here. I was getting some food to go at a local restaurant. This restaurant also has a gift shop near the restaurant. And again, I was not eating at the restaurant. I was getting it to go. But while I was waiting for my food, I was looking in the gift shop. And I can't explain it, folks. I don't know what it was. Divine intervention is all I can say. They had a rack of cards. I'm getting chills talking about this. I'll try to get through it. This card just stuck out. This particular card of a row of cards stuck out. And it's like it was drawing me to it. And I'm going to read this as we close tonight. It's this card here. And on the front, it says, "You are one amazing lady." I thought, well, maybe that's a birthday card or a Christmas card or a Mother's Day card. It's none of those. It's not a special occasion card. It can be for any occasion. And I read it and I read it again, folks, and I got chills. And I'm like, this is the card. This expresses everything that I want. And I mean, people at the funeral said, "Bob, this is so appropriate. I can't believe you found that card." I'm like, I didn't just find it. Somebody guided me to it. So I'd like to read this to you. And this is exactly what my grandmother was and how I feel about her. So this card is called "You Are One Amazing Lady." And Granny, if you're listening, this is for you. I'll try to get through this, y'all. I want you to know that you're one amazing lady. You are so good to the people in your life, so considerate and caring. When you give, it's easy to see that it comes straight from the heart, and it gives everyone around you the gift of a nicer world to live in. I love how strong you are inside. I always see that quality shine in you, and it reassures me to know, even though you face hardships and uncertainties just like many people do, there's a way through and a brighter day ahead. You're my reminder to be a little more brave, to not be so afraid, and to remember that things will turn out okay in the long run. I love the way you don't let the crazy, difficult days get you down. I admire your ability to put things in perspective, to laugh when you can, to cry when you must, but always to try and make things better. I hope you'll never forget how much I treasure just being in this world with you. And I love knowing that everyone else feels the same way I do. To your friends, you are everything a friend should be. To your family, I know you are dearly loved and truly the best. You are such a deserving person, and I really hope that all your days are as beautiful and as bright and as the ones you inspire in other people's lives. Again, I did not write this. This card was already ready, and it says it captured my whole heart when I read that. And I mean, I've had people afterward, family, that said, "Bob, this is such a beautiful card. It said everything that we feel about her." And so I treasure this card always. And just for me to be led to it was just It knows nothing short of a miracle. So I was glad to read this because it captured everything that I wanted to say about my grandmother. Well, let me just show you a few more pictures. I don't know if what I've shown, what I haven't shown. Um, this is her eating at the table. I don't know whose birthday that was, but this is at her house in her kitchen. This is the very same room that she cooked so many meals in. And it's about time that she gets to sit at the table and someone wait on her. Oh, I'd like to know how many dinners that she cooked. And she's a really remarkable lady. And then this was a Christmas picture. It's right around Christmas time. She's got a little corsage on her shoulder. And I apologize if I'm showing these again. I don't think I've shown these. And this was just her in her living room. I got my camera and she let me take a picture of her one day. And you can see right behind her those red roses. Now, those are fake roses, but she loved red roses. She did. And that's a really, 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 really good picture of her. But, as I said before, she's passed on, but she's young again. She doesn't look like this. I'm sure it's more like this now. And I'm sure she's with my grandfather as well, and who is young as well. And but I will see him again. I have no doubt that I will see him again someday. And so I love you, Granny, and wish you well. And I will see you soon. So thanks, everybody. I really love this show that I did tonight. The guest that I was supposed to have tonight, thank you for understanding that we would postpone your appearance for a couple of more episodes. He was very understanding, so I really do appreciate it. He'll have a good presentation when he comes on. So again, I gave you just the highlights. There's a lot more I could say about my grandmother. I'm sure everybody else has their great memories of their grandparents. So make sure you comment. I would love to share your stories as well. Grandparents are special. And if you still have any of yours, hold them close while you've still got them, because I certainly did with mine. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the Van Buren Variety Show, this special tribute to my granny. And hope you enjoyed the show. And remember, next week we'll have another guest, another topic. And again, I'm talking to people right now that I'm arranging a lot of guests coming up. So I may have a full schedule. I'd like to open this up to the people that are watching this, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching this later. If you know somebody that has like an interesting profession, a talent, a hobby, special interest, anything, make sure you email me. I'll have my email address at the end of the show. And if you think they would like to be on the show to talk about it, I would love to have them on to talk. So I do my live shows every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Central Time and 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So it's like I said before, it's a grab bag of entertainment, and I'm very glad you're here. So if you want more notifications, make sure you subscribe to this Van Buren Variety Show. And that way you'll get notifications, because the show may be expanding a little bit. I may have some specials during the week. Maybe some guests that can't make it on Tuesday, but maybe they can make it Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. So if you hit subscribe, you'll get some notifications. And make sure you also like the video as well. So again, this is Bob Van Buren. Thank you for this wonderful tribute to my granny, who's in her upper 90s and is at peace now. So again, have a great evening. This is Bob Van Buren. Good night, everybody.